Professor Pearcey says that an effective strategy in apologetics is to help people see more clearly where their worldview leads. When they realize their idol-centered worldview fails the practical test, that insight may open them to the case for a biblical worldview. And again, that's always going to the point. We're not rubbing in people's faces. We're not putting the thumb in their eye. We're not doing various things with our hands in people's faces. There's no gotchas. Our whole purpose is to replace their worldview with the more superior one that explains and takes the part that they have, which may not always be fully incorrect, but it doesn't speak to the broad picture at hand, because they have to say, well, it appears this way, but it can't be. Right. And so we're kind of able to take all those points and make the some of the parts, whole.
Right. So what we're really doing is clarifying for them what they believe and the implications of it,
right,
in hopes that they'll see how that doesn't work, right? And therefore they'll be more inclined to accept and be persuaded, as Paul says, persuaded to accept the true and the living God and the Christian worldview.
Yeah. So the examples that she brings up are people who are very clear on their stance of, this is what I view of humanity, and here seems to be the problems that arise. For example, Marvin Minsky from MIT, he's well known for the saying that the human brain is nothing but a 3-pound computer made of meat. And obviously, since computers do not have the power of choice, the implication is that neither do humans. And then, surprisingly, Minsky then asks, does that mean we must embrace the modern scientific view and put aside the ancient myth of voluntary choice? Well, it seems so, right? I mean, computers, that's all we are, and computers don't make choices, so voluntary choice is a myth, right? And we should shirk it away and just live with the fact that we don't have voluntary choice. Well, no, we cannot do that, is what he says. Why not? He goes on to say that no matter that the physical world provides no room for the freedom of will, absolutely none, even though it appears that way, that concept is essential to our models of the mental realm. Again, doing this dichotomy of a lower room and an upper room, the things that aren't real get put up in the attic, and outside the box, outside the scope of needing to explain. We cannot give it up. We're virtually forced. And again, Professor Pearcey says, here are the big key words to identify when someone is idle talking. not idle talking, but idol talking. That we're virtually forced to maintain that belief, even though we know it's false. False that it is, according to Minsky's materialistic worldview. So again, this is this doublethink that is clearly being established here. He is not referring to merely cultural customs or traditions that can differ from society to society. These are truths that humans cannot not know. So it's things that we know. We hold people accountable for their actions. It's why the law courts exist. It's why we tell our children not to do something. There's a myriad of cultural and civil and just moral claims that we make on people that is a signal for voluntary choice. Trying to convince somebody of something, that a debate to have, is all signals of voluntary free choice. And so here he's moves to the upper story. So in his
so we could ask Minsky, and again, this is moving into the next chapter. But so if everything that we do is just part of the deterministic deal, then if you're determined to do this, then why should I? If you're determined to say what you say, then why should I pay any attention to it?
Right? Yeah. It's
just your determinism that's allowing you to say this, and so maybe I have a different determinism, and that's why I believe the way I believe.
So again, just computers are made of meat. That's our brain, but then this freedom of will that we seem to experience, that's all outside the box. That's on top. And clearly that's all fake, even though it seems we cannot do otherwise. They take a leap of faith and put it in the upper story. This is a far cry from the biblical concept of faith, but here is she's talking about a different leap of faith. When we walk by faith, not by sight, some Christians seem to think that that Paul is speaking metaphorically, and by faith it means not reason. But Paul is speaking literally here. He means sight when he says sight. Non-material realities are invisible. They cannot be seen. Faith is the evidence of things not seen. And so it's one thing to see the resurrection of Jesus, right? If you see a dead person put alive, that's something that you could say, okay, I don't need faith to see that because I saw that happen. Obviously, we're removed from that historical sense, so even there we have to remain faith. But when Jesus then says, "I was raised from the dead because I'm here to pay for your sins," well, there's no scientific testing of that. You can't petri dish it. You can't titrate it. That's the type of faith here. But when secularists kind of project themselves into this faith mode, there's literally nothing for them to leap into because they don't embrace anything.
That's right.
The secular project leads to the suicide of the intellect and the disintegration of the person. By contrast, the Christian worldview is amazingly positive, affirming both the unity of truth and the holistic commitment of the thinking person.
Yeah, good.